Good morning. Welcome to Bali. Beautiful, beautiful Balinese morning. And I wanted to share a little Buddhist story today. I think it's really potent. It's called The Wound That Seeks the Arrow. So humans really like to be right. We really like to be right. And we make up stories a lot. So we like to be right about our stories. Problem is that we just make a lot of things up. And we get attached and identified with these stories. So the wound that seeks the arrow is the painful stories that we tell about ourselves, our shame stories. These come from many different places. It comes from things that we were told. Comes from things that we weren't told, things that we assumed from what was missing. Comes from our traumas, comes from other people, our culture, comes from that voice in our head, lots of places. You've probably attached to maybe a few stories that you've repeated to yourself, and that we've kind of taken on this mask, this costume that we wear. So the wound that seeks the arrow, let's think about that. So you have a wound, like a physical wound, and rather than the arrow like coming at it, the wound is coming towards the arrow. This is the interesting thing, but that's really what we do in like a confirmation bias. When we believe something about ourselves, and then we go out into the world to validate and verify that belief. Does that associate anything for you? For me, one of my big stories was that I am bad. I really thought that I was flawed. This really started for me whenever I've shared this before. Like I got pregnant very young when I was 14. First time I ever had sex. It was so hard. And nobody told me that I was bad, but it was pretty easy to absorb at that age. Pretty easy to absorb that I was wrong and that I was bad. Not that I had done something bad, but that I was bad. And then rather than like, that shame was so hard to feel and to like own, like I couldn't handle the shame of it. So instead I was like, I'm bad. Like this is what I'm going to do. So I acted like a bad girl. Like I put this persona on, like this party girl, this bad girl, like, oh, I'll show you. That was a protective mechanism. So often our stories and the ways that we react to them, not the pain that's underneath them, but the story that we show the world, is a protective mechanism often. So this party girl that came out was this protection towards an underneath story that I was bad, but I was still going out into the world trying to confirm the story that I was telling. Again, because regardless of what it is, we like to be right. So that was a long share. I didn't even know I was going to share all of that, but the story that I was bad, and then I'm trying to confirm that belief. The wound that seeks the arrow. That was a big one for me. That was a big arrow seeking mission. And so every time I kept getting in trouble and all of these things happened, people were like, what are you doing? Why would you do this? And this goes on and on and on for a long time for me. I would be like, what did you expect? I'm bad. So you can see how these are very, very painful. And these are our shame stories and the wound that seeks the arrow. So it's like how to come back on that, how to, do that dance backwards and figure out what's going on, is to understand what the base of the story is. And often we don't see that in the beginning. Often we see the costume that's out into the world, but what's the story that's underneath it? And then how are you validating that story? Like an unworthy story. Maybe getting into relationships where you're disrespected. That's something that's very common. We find ways to play out the old stories that we have. So that is the inquiry, is what's the underlying stories that are kind of running through your life, and how are you seeking the arrows? And what we really want to do is to pour some love, pour some self-love on shame, because shame is very corroding, and that's often what's at the base of our behaviors, of a lot of our behaviors. So it's a compassionate self-inquiry. It's questioning in, breathing into, and being with whatever comes up. Because often through our lives, we've turned away in many different ways. Self-abandonment. Maybe that's happened. Other people have abandoned us, and then we abandon ourselves as well. That's another wound that seeks the arrow. So it's just getting clear about what's going on, being kind to what you find, breathing into it, and staying with. So we're just going to do a short flow just to kind of weave this idea in, this inquiry in. There's no magic poses to get rid of shame or to understand your shame stories, but I believe through movement and through breath, we can weave intention. I'm going to stop talking so much, and let's move the body, and I'll kind of ask some reflection questions as we do. And pour breath. You can imagine that our breath is this self-love, and we'll really pour breath on the shame, pour self-love on whatever it is that comes up. So let's begin in a seat. Maybe one hand to the heart and one hand to the belly. And just as a reminder, like pressing your body into your hands and your hands back into your body, just a physical reminder that you've got yourself. You may not have always had yourself. You may not even recently be there for you, but that there's a part of you that cares. There's a big part of you that longs for safety and ease. You wouldn't be running from the pain in all of these ways. That longing and the pushing away of the pain through all the years is actually a sign of the love that you hold. It's just misguided, not sustainable, but it can be redirected. Big breath. Again, breathing into the hands. Audible exhale. Once more, pour out, make sound. Hands float down to the knees and waving the spine. So we're just going to do simple movements today. We're just waving, spiraling, breathing, integrating an intention. And we can get so stuck in these cycles, go both directions, just keep moving. Organic movement. We get stuck in these cycles though of shame, and what's happening on like in our neurobiology actually is that shame lives in a certain part of the brain, and it's the opposite part of the brain that we need in order to create new patterns. So why they call a shame spiral is that we're in one's part and we just keep looping back around. So really needing to find little exit points. Sometimes there's a little bit of pause or a little bit of a break in the story that we can begin to do something a little bit different. That's what we're looking for. So we can move into the part of our mind that creates new patterns, the part of our brain that has the sense of compassion and connectivity, prefrontal cortex, if you want to know the name, but you don't need to. And then let's bring the soles of the feet together. Knees can go wide, Baddha Konasana. And we're going to open one side and then another. Let's open side body, a little twist. So let's bring the hands, bring the hands to the ankles. And then left arm is slowly going to peel open. So you'll move with resistance. The gaze can follow the hand. And then lift the arm up and over, exhale, hand to the ankle. And just move like this. So right arm peels open, lift up and over, and keep moving like this pattern. So you may have heard the phrase like a limbic hijack. It's similar to a shame spiral. It's when the part of our brain that, sends us in those ruminating thoughts and those cycles, it gets, well, hijacked, and you can't really do that much once that happens. But if you have awareness that you get there, then there are some ways to kind of move out, and you can do that with breath. Take some sharp breaths. Do something a little bit different. You can wiggle the body, you can shake the body. You know, some things that can happen to shift the pattern. Send the legs long. Maybe scoop the booty out just slightly. And let's move with breath here. So we're just gonna wave the spine. Moving the body with breath also just begins to shift patterns. That helps us get in the body and out of the head a little bit. So on an inhale, we're gonna press down through the sit bones, through your booty, reach the arms up, and then wave forward. And then as if you're being picked up by the back of the heart, kind of round and come up. And then a wave leading with the front of the heart. So just let this look like you. Move with breath. Inhale, lift. Exhale, drape down. Audible exhale. Press down and lift up. Audible exhale. Again, round up. Twice more like this. As if you could just get rid of some stuff. Lion's breath out the mouth. Stick your tongue out. Press down, lift up. All right. Tabletop. Cross the legs. Come into tabletop position. And we'll keep moving with breath. So this time, let's see here. Just take some organic movements here. So wiggle around. And then spread the knees a little bit wider than maybe you would. And we're gonna take the hips all the way over to the right. So bring them all the way down. Weight will go in the right hand, and then left arm will slowly peel open. It's very similar to what we did earlier. Left gaze, I was gonna say. Gaze goes to the left fingers and then up and over. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So find your pattern with this. So just putting new patterns in the body is what we're doing with shame, because shame really is a pattern. When we've done it for so long, when we've believed the thing for so long, it's a pattern. And it's natural to do the thing that we've always done. So we have to learn to switch it up. And it's a slow learning. So compassion along the way, and compassion probably in and of itself is a pattern breaker, because often we don't have much of that for ourselves. Once more each side. So anytime that we can sit for a moment and not self-abandon, hands on heart, say, I'm staying, I'm here, not believing the thing, even for a moment, shifts the pattern. Those little chinks in the armor, we gotta go for it. Walk the hands forward, puppy pose. So the hips will stay high. You're gonna bring the heart low. Maybe turn the palms up. I really like having the palms up, this gesture of like letting go. Because, well, it's quite apt here. The heart can come down, the forehead can come to the ground, maybe the palms go up. And steady breath, a few moments in stillness here. Notice the breath in the body. When you inhale, can you get wider in the side ribs, back of the heart? And then exhale, a little bit of a descension towards the earth. It's called puppy pose or melting heart pose. So just imagine like ice going to water, water going to vapor. You're just melting in, releasing some of the hard edges, some of the shame stories, the hard, painful things. So if you could soften around the edges, beginning to unlearn. Slowly walking the hands back, hips to heels. To create another pattern here. Dancing camel. This is really nice. Bring the knees a little bit wide. Hips can go to the heels. And we'll take the left hand behind, swoop the right arm up. Technical term, swoop it up. This will be an inhale. And then an exhale, you can wave forward, maybe get low. Right hand plants, left arm swoops up. So your option, your choice, maybe you press down and lift the hips. Maybe you don't, but move like you. So exhale, you kind of swoop forward, and inhale, open the heart. And that's really what this is about on an emotional level, is really reopening the heart to ourselves. We get hardened through life. It's a natural protection because, well, life is challenging. Life is painful. So we find stories and masks and ways to protect ourselves. So while they're helpful at the time, they're not often always sustainable. A few more times with your breath. So being able to have enough of a pause and a break to step back and take a good look is one of the most powerful parts of humaning, of recovery. That pause. And in that pause, doing something a little bit different. What do you do when you don't do the thing you always do? That's the key point. That's the medicine. And slowly come hips to heels. I'm going to show you Garuda Mudra. Take both of your hands, bring the thumb pads together. That's not a thumb pad, the thumb web. And then turn the palms. The thumbs will go up and the palms towards you, hands to heart center. Press the heart back into the hands. Garuda Mudra. This is the mythical Hindu eagle who has perspective, zoom out, so can see what's going on. So Garuda energy, like bringing in this intention of Garuda energy, is like, may I see what is hard to see. What a mantra there. May I see, may I begin to see gently what is hard for me to see. May I begin to see clearly who I am underneath the stories that I've told, the stories that have been told. And just notice what resonates, if anything hits. May I begin to see clearly who I am underneath the stories that I've believed about myself. And just breathe into that. May I begin to see the truth of who I am, of the wide diversity of what I am, outside of the small stories that I've believed. Pour your heart into your hands back into your heart. Continue that connection. This I'm not going anywhere. This turning towards self. What have you believed about yourself? That's the inquiry. What are you believing about yourself that isn't true? Where did it come from? How has it helped you in the past? And how is it maybe not helpful now, or is it? Beginning to get to know our shame is the way that we move through it. And we don't go after ourselves with a sledgehammer. We gently come towards, we gently move towards. So I encourage you, hati hati, as they say here, careful, slowly. This is old stuff. This is likely familiar to you, which means it's been there for a while. So move slow. 3 more rounds of breath. Hands on the heart back into the hands. Let's take 3 lion's breaths. So tongue out on the exhale, make a noise. Inhale. Twice more. Again. Wiggle. Spiral the spine. Let's take a twist to each side, just like we could wring it out. Just a little bit of a wringing out, using the postures here as intentions, using the mudras, the breath, the postures as intentions here. So left hand can slide down the right thigh and twist over towards the right. We'll just stay here. Right fingertips growing roots, finding home, finding truth. Heart center pulls forward just slightly. And lift up the back of the neck, crown of the head, getting tall, standing prouder, taller in the truth. What's beneath the stories. Leave the left hand where it is. Right arm comes over, and we'll take eagle arm. So both the arms are crossed for a moment, but let's take eagle arms. Again, eagle is Garuda. With the perspective, cat-cow here. Just 3 or 4 rounds. Next inhale, cactus the arms. Out the mouth. Hands sprinkle down. And then we'll take a twist to the left. So wringing out what you don't need anymore. We hold stuff. We like to tell stories, and then we like to believe them, and it's not always helpful. What can you let go of here? What can you wring out? Heart smiling forward. And then left hand crosses over, eagle arms. So again, zooming out to have perspective. So you can wave this intention in the body. Inhale, lift, cat-cow. Move like you. And setting the intention to have perspective, to get out of the smallness, to zoom out, to widen the gaze, and to see that which is sometimes challenging to see. To pause long enough to get a new angle, a different gaze. Inhale, cactus the arms. Lion's breath out the mouth. The hands sprinkle down. Notice how you're feeling in the body. So much of recovery, a big part of recovery, is allowing ourselves to feel what we feel rather than needing to wrap something around it. A story, a mask, a costume. To turn towards how we feel and allow it rather than turn away. So if you're feeling something, you're doing it right. Keep breathing. Stay with you. And let's close the way we began, with one hand on the heart, one hand somewhere else on the body. Both hands on your body somewhere. Let's just do that. I'm just making a commitment that even when it's challenging, the intention is to turn towards, and even if it doesn't happen all the time, the intention is to care about ourselves, to care about our pain. And when we're stuck in the shame spiral, we're causing ourselves pain. So to care about that part of us that still believes whatever story it is, have compassion there, and to slowly turn towards. Hands to heart center. Let's pour forward in thanks and gratitude for this, the opportunity to do things a bit differently. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So grateful for the teachers that came before me, for this practice, for therapy and self-inquiry and community and recovery, sobriety, and whatever that looks like for you. I know we're all on different paths, but if this was resonant, as I've spoken in some of the other videos, is that I have my Emerge program coming up, and we really untangle all of this, and we do it in community, and it's really powerful to do together. So if you're interested, you can check out the links and the details before we take off soon. Love to explore with you. Until then, be kind to you, and I'll see you on your mat next time.